Oops, I'm recording now.
Member of S.A.M.S. I would like to welcome everybody to our sixth Finding Common Ground discussion. Tonight, we welcome any youth who are on the call. So I would like to greatly thank all the youth who got on the call tonight. Please remember to put your names into the chat box as we have two gift card raffles going. One is for a gift card for monetary value, a Visa gift card. The second is a gift card to Mitchell's Ice Cream. So tonight, our topic is centered around youth interactions with police. And feel free to either voice your question, you can unmute and voice the question that you have, concern or comment, or you can put it into the chat box. Thank you again for attending our Finding Common Ground, our sixth Finding Common Ground. And I just want to say thank you to the Shaker Heights Police for being so transparent through all of this. Dee Dee, go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome back. I am going to open the floor to our young people because this is all about you. We want you to feel comfortable interacting with the community and the police. So I am going to ask who has the first question, comment, direct to the police department. And like Melanie said, if you are not comfortable unmuting and asking your question, you can put it in your chat and I will gladly read it for you. Okay, now in a minute, I'm going to put one of the young people on blast, like Christopher Crosby. Do you have a comment for us, a question?
No, not right now.
Not right now, okay. So, Amy, Sam. Okay, then let me call on Chief DeMuth if I can. If you could just give the young people, hi Marcel, a quick point of reference for talking for them so that they might start feeling at ease.
Sure. That's not a problem. So, you know, as a lot of you know, this is our sixth in our community conversations with the S.A.M.S group, and many of us on here. And before I say anything else, I just want to introduce who from the police department is here. So many of you know Sergeant Grafton. Kim, wave your hand there, and then we have Commander Masnardo, who's on the bottom here. And then we have a couple of officers, and we purposely brought.
You went on mute.
I'm sorry, I don't know how that happened, but anyway, I was introducing everybody, and I introduced Tim and Commander Masnardo. And then we have two officers on here. We have Officer Roger Troop. Could you wave, Roger? And then we have Officer Dylan Leas, and he's on the other side. And we consider Roger and Dylan two of our finer officers in our department. And they're on here because tonight's topic is a really important one, and it's one that is constantly debated. And it's the building of trust, obviously, between the community and the youth in the community, and our police department. And as you all know, I've been on these conversations for all six of them. But what would be really great is if we could get, like you said, Dee Dee, some of the young folks on this call tonight, and kind of directly talk to our officers and tell them exactly, you know, what your feelings are, you know, what you don't like about what we do as police officers, what makes you feel unsafe if you're around police officers, what makes you feel, maybe what you're happy about with our police officers. But as all of us know, you know, during this COVID time, these conversations are about trying to meet people where they are in non-intimidating fashion, and so that we can all sit around and talk. And sometimes that talk is uncomfortable, and we don't necessarily have to agree on everything, but it's important. And this is a great opportunity for the youth on this call to share their feelings about our department. And I really would like, both Dylan and Roger to listen and kind of hear and understand what goes through the heads and minds of the youth in Shaker and why they feel that way. So without any further ado, I'd love to hear, some of our youth on the call tonight, just talk to that subject matter.
Hi, my name is Olivia Pewells. I'm a junior at the high school, and along with like a lot of other people, I'm coming from SCORE. And I actually did not know that we would have as much of an opportunity to speak, but I think for one thing, like, it's probably a very simple comment, but I think I know so very little about our police department. I think I've talked to Officer Troop about like the whole situation at the school, but other than that, I haven't really engaged much with the police department. So from this session, I really would just kind of like to know our community and police department. That's pretty much all I have though.
Before Roger or Dylan talk, Olivia, do you have any thoughts or ideas as to your own ideas as to what would be good venues or better ways for us to get together and get to know our police department?
Yeah, I think that's honestly a really good question. I think during a pandemic, everything is just very hard. And I think that Zoom can be like a little bit nerve-wracking, especially for teenagers. I know that a lot of people talk about like Zoom anxiety. And I think maybe like this might just be a random, ridiculous idea, but maybe some sort of like socially distant, like not necessarily getting to know people personally, but just like not solely associating police officers with like force. I think getting to know that like these are people who are there to support you as well, and kind of breaking down the barriers of everything being too serious in the community, if that makes sense at all. But I think if ever were it to be possible, something in person, something to kind of like see face to face, because I feel like when you're right in front of someone, it's easier than being on Zoom to like address concerns and like feel emotions, if that makes sense.
Yeah. That makes total sense. Absolutely. And it's certainly where we always wanted to go prior to COVID. Anybody else? Would they like, even if they didn't have a personal experience with the police department, would they like to share maybe something they heard that is unsettling for them or uncomfortable for them? Anything like that?
Chief, I
Does it
have
to
a
be-
comment in the chat. Then Lily wants to know, what are a student's rights and responsibilities when approached by an officer? For example, can they ask to have a parent present?
Tim, Roger, what would you like?
That's a great question. And that was brought up on one of the prior conversations we had. And of course, you have all the right in the world to ask for a parent to be present. A lot of times, and hopefully the situation is not such an emergency that we don't have time for that or circumstances dictate something different. But under any normal circumstance, anytime we go to talk to a juvenile, they definitely have the right to ask for a parent to be there. That's not a problem.
About the question that was stated earlier, but you said like unsettling things that we've heard. Does it have to be specifically for the Shaker, like from the Shaker police?
No, not at all.
Oh, okay. So like a few years back, I heard like I had gotten pulled over with my mom by a police officer, and like it was just nothing. It wasn't like anything serious, but for some reason, he said like, "Be careful out here. I'm gonna let you off with a warning." Although some police officers aren't like me, and I don't understand why he would say that. It's just like,
Roger or Dylan, would you like to respond to that?
If I may, Chief. Actually, I find myself saying that sometimes as well. When it comes to traffic enforcement, I like to sometimes think I'm a little bit soft. Writing tickets isn't my number one favorite thing to do. You know, I know it's very important, especially in the community, to keep you know, motorists and pedestrians safe. However, it's not my number one goal each shift, and because no one likes getting a ticket, and usually when a citation is issued to someone, you know, they're not happy about it. So sometimes I will find myself saying, guys, you know, not every officer is like me. I'm giving you a nice free today. That's just meaning, hey, I want you to kind of mind your traffic, mind your you know, speed, the red light violations, whatever it may be. Be mindful of that, because if you were to do that again, I can't say another officer will be as nice as me and give you a warning. So that's why sometimes I do say that, and it's just kind of to put that in the back of your mind. Hey, be mindful of the traffic laws, especially here in Shaker Heights. So hope that answers your question a little bit.
Thank you for that response, Mr. Lewis. Jakia, can I ask you a question? When you heard that, what feeling or emotion did that comment evoke in you? Because you asked the question for a reason. How did it make you feel when the officer said that?
oh, I was scared. Just any like interaction with the police isn't a fun one to me personally, and it makes me uncomfortable. So when he said that, it wasn't like I did not think he had the intentions like Mr. Patrick Leas said. I didn't think that. I was like, oh, maybe it's some type of threatening undertone for some reason. Not for some
Could have
reason.
gone another way.
Huh?
Like this could have gone another way, but I'm being nice today.
Yeah.
That's very interesting. Do we have any other young people on the line that have maybe experienced something similar and had a similar feeling? Or did you have a different feeling about the encounter?
Hi, everyone. I do want to just slip in here. This is Kim, and I want to thank everyone for joining tonight, especially our youth. So happy to have you. We do want you to lift your questions and concerns. This is a safe place to just really connect with our police department. But I do want to say that for our youth, for the effort of getting into this call tonight, we're going to raffle 2 gift cards. So what I need for you to do is to put your names in the chat at some point during this call and indicate that you are a youth, so that we will have a list of names to choose from for the raffle. Thank you. So I'm going to mute, but definitely we want that exchange. So if you have a question, no question is the wrong question. So if you have a question or a comment, please, we want to hear it. And if you're uncomfortable speaking your question, feel free to put it in the chat.
Okay, so our youth seem to be kind of quiet this evening. Maybe they don't know where to start. We are fortunate in that we have our Shaker Heights Police Department willing to sit down and to talk with us and to answer your questions. So maybe not on a local level with the things that you've been seeing in the news. I'm sure you have some questions or concerns. Maybe if you could direct them to some of our officers so they can help us to understand more what's going on in the world around us.
Yeah, Dee Dee, Merritt put a question in the chat if you want to ask it.
I'm not seeing it in my chat. I will double check.
I can ask it. And
Would you please?
Absolutely, and I will. I'm going to serve this over to Officer Roger Troop. So Merritt asked. He said, she said, if you were in a situation like Derek Chauvin's, how would you handle it? Or how would you keep your composure? And I don't want to add anything to it. Would you do anything different or would you do the same thing? She didn't say that, but I'm adding that to it.
Well, let me start with the question real quick. Hey, hi, everybody. How's everybody doing? As far as being in that situation, as far as the trial or in the situation with George Floyd?
I'm assuming it's with George Floyd.
Oh, well, I can start. I'm pretty confident if I say it wouldn't have played out like that in Shaker. I'm pretty confident in saying that. There's parts when you watch the video for anybody to watch that are tough, especially when you see other officers saying, hey, I think that's enough. Hey, let's check on them. I've been on calls where we check each other pretty well. We do a good job in making sure people's emotions aren't getting the best of them, or they are doing what needs to be done, not an ego trip, I guess. So outside of that, personally, that's not how I handle people in business. And I haven't worked with anybody again here that have, which is I'm happy about that. And past that, we on a whole train a lot for things like that don't happen. And that's one thing I've always been happy about with Shaker. We do a lot of training. I mean, a lot of training. And a lot of it is the talking, and we do a lot of things with the being able to verbalize and get people to calm down. He was obviously having some type of panic attack. And after he wouldn't get in the car, there's no reason. I mean, he is a big guy, right? And in that back seats of those cars are small. So there's no reason we couldn't have maybe found another way to get him to where we needed to go, perhaps, or found a way to make sure everything was calm to get a better outcome, definitely a way better outcome than what happened. Did that answer your question at all? Did I kind of ramble the other way?
Would any of our other officers on here like to add to that at all?
I definitely would like to add a couple points to that, and I would venture to say that most people who saw that video know that there's something that was obviously not correct with the way that transpired. I couldn't imagine something like that happening with our police department. First and foremost, our officers go out, excuse me, and they look to operate, from the highest level of integrity. In addition to that, the officers that they work with, I think, would never allow something like that to happen and let it go unchecked. Even over and above that, our supervisors, we routinely look at the dash cams and body cams, and if that was ever caught by a supervisor, that would be dealt with immediately. And lastly, we have a community that wouldn't tolerate that. So with that in mind, and with all of those things built in together, I would never expect that to happen in Shaker Heights.
I'd like to say some words on it too. And there's an old saying that culture, eats policy for lunch. And what that means is, you could have policy, all the policies in the world, but if the culture or the environment in which you're working, the culture of the agency or the organization is contra to those policies, those policies are ineffectual. I'm not in the business of condemning or condone or talking about other agencies, but I can only guess and only hazard a guess that the culture of that police department had a lot to do with what happened that day.
Okay, I have another question in the chat box that I want to read, but before I do, if I could ask the youth to put their name and their grade level in the chat box again to make sure that Miss Kim is able to pull them off for the raffle, I would appreciate that. This question is coming from Mrs. Galuli, and she says, my 15-year-old often goes with his friends to the Van Aken district. Outside of wearing his helmet, oops, bear with me. What other things should they be mindful of not to do, or what things are you all watching for in youth activity when they're out and about with their friends?
Dylan or Roger?
Yeah, I'll speak. Most important thing, I just want to make sure, especially youth, are understanding of being safe and as safe as possible when crossing a road while on a bicycle. I was young as well. Oftentimes I get caught up with speaking to my friends while riding a bicycle. So just being mindful of the traffic as well, because unfortunately I've been on calls where younger individuals have been hit by cars on bicycles. So if it's something that I can help prevent, that's always my number one goal, especially when it comes to youth, is their safety. So that's my number one thing. That's pretty much all I look out for when it comes to Van Aken District, because Van Aken District has one of two things: a lot of pedestrian traffic and a lot of vehicle traffic. Unfortunately, it's around a big intersection. So I hope that answers your question, but safety is my number one priority for the youth. So
If I can
You know,
try.
I'm sorry, Roger, go ahead.
Oh, hey, just but like Laya said, safety is huge, and especially to get there, you pretty much have to cross Chagrin, Van Aken, or Warrensville, and all those are always congested. And on top of that, it's just when you are at the district, just kind of being mindful of, it's a public place. It's not, the whole place isn't your playground. And haven't been into many calls with people complaining about the youth, which is good. It seems like once everybody gets there, they coexist very well. But just being mindful of, it's a community place, and not, you're a big field or your private backyard. So.
And I was just going to add one other comment, and it's not the Van Aken District, but Shaker Town Center, but similar type of activity or question is some of the bad things that I've seen is that, we have kids that are on skateboards, or they ride their bikes in that alcove area of Shaker Town Center. And I don't want to speak for anybody else, but I've seen my share of older people, elderly people get wiped out by those kids on bikes or on skateboards as they're walking out of a business, and the bikes or skateboards are hit them in a diagonal. So I know that the kids who are up there, they just want to ride their skateboard and bikes, but like Dylan was saying, we really don't want you doing that up there, because we've seen people break bones due to collisions with the bikes and the skateboards and that kind of stuff.
Okay, we have several questions. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, we have several questions from some youth. I was going to interrupt.
Okay, you were talking about the questions in the chat box?
Yes.
Okay, I was getting ready to get to those. And I got one that was texted to me, wanting to know about why no one is talking about the incident that took place at the church where a father and son fit a certain description and guns were drawn. Can anyone tell us about that? I believe it took place at St. Dominic's.
I think that one, what they're talking about, the father and son, were the father was actually a victim of a crime.
Okay, thank you for clearing that up.
You're welcome.
Let's go to the first question in the chat from Riley Slade. Does race ever factor into how you interact with people on the job? Mr.
Roger?
I was trying to receive the question as well. I'm sorry. You said, does race ever have a factor?
Does race ever factor into how you interact with people on the job?
Yes, it does. Just in a sense that, not in a bad way, but sometimes to be relatable to people, you have to be able to communicate with them. And being able to communicate is being able to be relatable. And to keep it simple, different races, different cultures respond to different things, whether it's as simple as a hi, hello, or all the way down to something that's not so polite. So for me personally, yes, it does.
Mr. Lewis, do you want to comment?
yeah, sure, of course. In a negative way, no, never. But I want everyone to understand there's sometimes where situations arise and callers or victims give out descriptions of race or whatever it may be, and it's sometimes when a suspect fits a description and you locate that suspect, it's not the police picking on you. There's a reason most oftentimes we're interacting with someone, especially if it is from another race. But for me, never anything negative. So.
Sorry, I muted by mistake. But just before what Dylan Lias was saying, also in terms of the job, you get sometimes where in terms of race being there is, I've been on many calls where people don't want to, especially with everything going on like national. A lot of people that we get called there or traffic stops are more comfortable, puts them at ease to deal with somebody that looks like them, whether it be white or black or everything, in between. So that's a lot of times where that race comes into how you handle your job and how you deal with people. There's, especially when situations are tense or somebody feels like they are, like Lai said, they're fitting a description and they're pulled over by a white officer, they are sometimes at more ease with the black officer there. So that's it.
Can we go into depth about this fitting a description? What descriptions are we talking about? Let's go to the young man. He did not have autism, but he had a disorder where he was always cold. He was wearing a hoodie, and someone said it's the middle of the summer. He's walking down the street with this coat and his hood and everything on, and we all know that didn't go well. Give us some more detail about what the quote unquote fitting a description is to you and what we should be mindful of. Is it like a Trayvon Martin walking down the street with his hoodie on late at night, his hands in his pocket? What?
As I spoke, what I was referring to was, as mentioned, from a victim giving a statement on, hey, this is the identified suspect, or a caller saying, this individual matches the description. I observed them doing this, or this. Then we would approach them if the suspect or individual were to match that description. That's what I was referring to. In reference to the comment about a boy in a hoodie that had autism, I'm actually not quite familiar with what you're speaking about. I'm sorry if you hear, that's my son in the background banging on the door. I'm sorry if anyone hears him.
Okay. So what I'm understanding, and someone else can chime in with me before I get to Elliot, I see your question and I'd like for you to ask it if you can. But so if you get a call and someone says that I see something taking place and this person fits this is how they're dressed, this is how they're acting, already have a opinion of this person based on the description that you were given, correct?
Well, if they're suspected of committing a crime, or the caller or victim has stated that they've committed a crime, then we have a duty to investigate. And so if that individual matches the description of a said suspect, then we would have that duty to interact with them and further investigate, if a crime took place, or what the active situation is between a victim or just that individual.
Okay. Ms. Galuli, do you feel comfortable speaking about your comment with the guns drawn, or would you like me to read it?
I was hoping that the other students' questions would get addressed. I think there were other students that said they had questions. And I don't know if I'm saying your name correctly, Jakaya.
That's when I was going to get to them.
And
Well,
I was just going back to the question that you had talked about getting texted to you. The man and his son who were sort of held up in the church parking lot, and then later in the evening, there was a man and some children who were approached by police because they fit the description of the people who had accosted the man and his son. And I guess it goes along with the fit the description thing that it just didn't really seem like that family group fit the description of the two men who were described as doing the mugging or whatever you'd want to call it. I was curious about that.
Well, I think I can answer that. So there might be a little bit of misinformation there about some of the people that were stopped that night. We actually had two similar crimes within probably 10 hours of each other, where both sets of victims were approached by suspects. They both had the same descriptions. So we were pretty certain that we were looking for the same set of male suspects. Well, we had active patrols out that night. It was right before Easter. These crimes were taking place at churches. So we had extra patrols in the area, and we ended up the early morning, next morning, encountering a couple of males that fit the description, the clothing description. And some of the clothing was pretty distinctive. So one of the suspects that were approached had that distinctive clothing pattern. And I think that was really all it was as far as people being stopped. The officers were just out with extra patrols looking for certain criteria with males fit in that description. But it wasn't a family that was approached that we believed were suspects.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, I would
Thank
like
you.
to
I wanted to get
announce
that
the
in
winner
right
if
then
possible.
because it was still at the same time.
I'm sorry, Dee Dee. I wanted to
I was
announce
getting
the
to that.
winner if
Okay.
possible. The
Go
first
ahead.
winner for our $25 Visa gift card. Can I get a drum roll? It is, I hope I'm pronouncing it right. Is it Jakia? It's Jackia.
No, it's Jakia. You said it right.
Jakia, you won $25 in a Visa gift card, and Kim will reach out to you about how to come and collect it. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Oh, I have
Okay.
Is that?
Congratulations, Jakia. Go ahead.
Thank you. I had a question about how do you, as police officers, how do you react to the recent idea that police officers should be defunded, like personally?
I'll start out, and I'll let the other officers, because this is a topic that I have talked about, discussed, debated with many, many, many people. And I believe with all my heart that I believe society really has to define what justice means to them. And once that definition has been set in place, and I know it sounds very arbitrary and very, very general, but society has to define what justice means to them and then fund towards that sense of justice. What happens is, and especially right now, and Dylan and Roger, they're most susceptible to this, is, due to this period of social unrest or social justice, society throughout the country has this moving ball and these moving targets as to what they want out of their individual police departments. And not all of the individuals have the same opinion. And not all the most vocal people have the same opinion of what they believe justice is. Yet the expectation is that somehow the police officers that are on the street right now should try to hit that moving target. And it's a very untenable situation for police officers. It's very difficult. You know, they've been through the training, they've got their academy training, all their legal training. And I think you're not going to find one police officer, at least in Shaker Heights, that says, listen, you know, I am a servant to the community. If this community wants something different, just let me know and I'll be a servant to this community. But it's very hard for me as a police officer to hit a moving target when somebody wants, some very vocal people want this, and then others want this, and then others want this. Again, it becomes an untenable situation for a police officer. And I think, again, we need some national leadership that brings this all together and says, this is what society, this is what justice looks like to us, and this is what we'll fund.
Okay, thank
Oh,
you for that, Chief. I want to digress a little bit. I have a question in the chat box. Amy, questions, or would you like me to? Okay, so Elliot wants to know what makes an officer scared enough to use force, and his little sister wants to know, why did you decide to become a police officer?
Roger?
Roger, can
Can you hear me?
help out with an answer there?
Can you hear me?
We can now, thank you. Mhm.
All right, so Elliot and his little sister. So what makes a officer scared enough to use force? To keep that answer simple, a lot of times it's something that we see on scene or at that moment that makes us have to step up to keep everybody else out of harm's way. So there's been incidences where you know you're stopping somebody and they are trying to cause somebody harm, or they are, you know, they might have a weapon or suspect they have a weapon, or they just want to do something else wrong. So with that, I can't let them go. Maybe they don't want to go to jail for whatever reason. Maybe all they can hear is wanting to get to that person they're trying to get to, whether it's a fight or something like that. So we have to step in, and in us stepping in, it could be as simple as restraining them, trying to get them in handcuffs, to that type of force, or keeping them away from somebody. And then sometimes if that person is held up and trying to physically harm somebody, sometimes that force of showing a weapon is the only thing that gets them to back down sometimes, right? You see it enough in the news or movies, TV shows, wherever you want to see it, right? I mean, it's always there. And as far as why did I want to become a police officer, two basically reasons like this, trying to find a way to make things better for everyone, to keep it simple. I mean, it's a lot that we all have these discussions, and a lot of you guys are actually having it with the police department, which is cool, but a lot of people always have these discussions and have all these opinions, but never do anything about it. So I wanted to do something about it.
Thank you, Mr. Troop. Carrington, you have a question. Would you like to ask it now?
Yeah, so a little
Do
bit
we
of
still have
context.
Carrington on?
Yeah. So my mom is a retired police officer of 13 years for the Atlanta PD. And during the Black Lives Matter protests, I kind of found myself really unable to balance both sides. Like you see in the media, like ACAB, all that stuff. And then I'm at home and I just see my mom trying to defend, or well, not trying to defend obviously the corrupt cops, but trying to defend the good cops. And so what for the people of Black cops that are in the meet, how do you feel that your position has kind of changed? Like, do you feel that you're less of a cop now, like because you're Black, or do you also feel that like your interactions with other white cops have changed because of all the tension that's kind of happened in the media? And how do you kind of balance that?
Kimmy, you want to answer that?
Absolutely. So I've been doing this about 26 years now, a little over. From day one, I've never felt different than I do today as it relates to the people that I work with and the communities that I serve, no matter who it is, what they are, what nationality or race. It's never changed. So for me, it's been constant and consistent. Because our world goes through these issues as we're going through now with the social justice movement and a lot of volatile issues surrounding race, yeah, there's an added component. And, you know, I mean, I would argue to say that there's probably a larger added component for the minority officers, because not only do we have our own community that's crying out for the justice, but they look at us as being on the other side of that as well. So we kind of get it twice. But at the end of the day, as a police officer, I have a responsibility to uphold the laws of our community, of our state, and of this country. And that doesn't waver for me, no matter who you are. So as long as you can keep that in mind as an officer, you'll be fine.
Okay, so we have more questions in the chat. First of all, Chris, do you feel comfortable asking yours, or would you like me to read it?
You can read it.
Perhaps I can read it. Okay, Chris wants. Thank you.
Oh, yeah. So, what did you guys, take on that whole situation that recently happened, with the guy? He got pulled over, I guess, and they said he thought it was a taser that he was going to pull out and tase him, but it happened to be a gun. Like, what's your perspective on that whole situation?
Well, I think for anybody, Chris, that's in law enforcement, we all think that that's just a tragedy that happened. And we're all sad to see something like that happen just in society in general. And all we can do when we're confronted with something like that in our profession is to make sure that we take those situations and we learn from them. And like for us in Shaker Heights, we take accidents like that happen and we bring them back to our officers, and we make sure we're just doing that much more training and that we're doing everything we can to always be better and always working towards making sure that we don't have situations like that happen with our police department.
Okay, so I see we have a completely separate conversation going on in the chat, and it's, I won't say distracting, everyone has something to say, but these things really need to be presented to the group. The next that I noticed came from Leon Alexander. I'm a parent of a 14-year-old African-American young man. He often likes to ride his bike around the neighborhood. Before he leaves home, I feel obligated to have the talk with him. I instruct him to keep his hands in the air, not to talk back, and to comply. I'm still very nervous and anxious until he comes home. What did the police, but not be terrified? And then Naquetta, I said your name right, sweetie, goes on to say that you all can agree with me. At this point, I'm thinking I would really, instead of so much in the chat, if we get a break, if you can just unmute yourself and ask your question, because if you're talking about it there, everyone in the group, I'm sure, wants to hear the answers to the same things that are going on in your mind, and I will allow you the time to do so. Let's see, it's unfortunate we have to have the talk. Youth with questions, I got that. Do we have any other youth with questions?
Yeah,
Miss
Oh, y'all can go.
Go ahead,
Okay, so
Olivia.
So I write for the Shakerite, and I'm currently writing an investigation, kind of an opinion, to help students in the community understand. Okay, this is also a more like national question, just to like preface, but it's just to kind of help the students and community understand what defunding the police really means. And to my understanding, this phrase is kind of calling for like police budgets to be reallocated to what may be considered like an underfunded but necessary social service, such as like mental health care or substance abuse treatment. But I was just wondering what your personal thoughts are on this, and just kind of like shape my opinion as I write about this, because I think that, I mean, I think it's kind of nerve-wracking to just say like defund the police, because if anything, it makes me think, well, should they spend more money on like training or something? So I just want to know what you guys think about that, just so that I have a well-rounded article that is not necessarily ignorant or disregarding points of view.
So Olivia, I'll try to answer additionally for you is, I agree. I think generally when the statement is said defund the police, I believe that most people are thinking just reallocate funds. Not everybody. Some people want police budgets cut. But my guess is you're exactly right, Olivia, that most people are talking about reallocating funds towards initiatives that need to be funded. And you talked about one, and our city is heavily involved and have for the last year have done research in regards to mental health response teams and how do we approach it and what's the best ways to do it. We're fortunate enough that we were able to creatively fund this initiative. But what I would say, Olivia, is, and you don't have to take my word for it, it's the fact. You'll find that 80 to 90% of police budgets across America are very, very tight. I can't think of a police agency that has a surplus of funds right now. And what happens is, in my opinion, and Roger talked about it, and Commander Masnardo talked about it, and Dylan talked about it, is one of the areas that gets negated or it doesn't get as much attention as it should is the area of training. And training costs money. And the question the one young man asked the question about the incident with the taser and the gun. That is an absolute training issue. There are other issues at play there, but it's an absolute training issue. When you have police officers and they take weapons out on the street, the state requirement is, for your handgun, you have to qualify once a year. Do you want a police officer with a handgun out on the street just shooting that once a year? Or do you want a police officer on the street that shoots it maybe once or twice a month? And the same goes for the decision-making process in using a taser. And I don't want to go too far into this or too in depth is, tragedy triggers training, but we would like training to always be triggered, meaning we believe training is the key. And Roger talked about it earlier, is that we train even at the expense of other things so those tragedies don't occur. And I apologize because I'm getting a little bit off topic in regards to your defund question. Totally. But what you'll find is, and again, you don't have to believe me, you can look it up yourself, is that police department budgets across the country are very tight, very, very tight. And the thing that always gets pushed behind is training. And in our line of work, training should be pushed to the forefront because it costs people's lives.
I would like
Sorry,
to
can I just jump in?
Oops, sorry.
Sorry,
I
go ahead.
noticed that Mr. Grafton also unmuted, but I just wanted to know if you guys would be comfortable in being like referenced or quoted in the article, because I think that really does help the argument a lot, because a lot of when I get into my opinion, it's explaining that like training is probably one of the most important things. So if you are comfortable, please let me know. I have been taking notes.
It's fine with me.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Okay, I had a question kind of going.
Okay, I am.
My question was like specifically related to the training. I'm gonna put in the chat. What training is provided for the police? Oh, yes. What
Okay,
training?
is that Josh?
Yes.
Oh, it's okay, Josh. I want you to go ahead and ask your question after Josh. Miss Melanie wants to announce.
Yes, thank you.
The next winner. And then I'm going to ask, because we have a lot of youth with a lot of questions. Melanie, you want to go ahead and make your announcement?
Yes, so the winner of the Mitchell's gift card, can I have a drum roll really quickly? The winner is Chris. And Chris, you can reach out to Kim to set up a time frame in which to receive your gift card. Congratulations.
Okay.
Okay,
there we
Josh.
go.
And
Josh,
Dee, I
proceed
want to
with
say,
your
I think you're breaking up just a bit. We're not catching all of what you're saying. Or at least on my end, it sounds like you're breaking up just a bit. But I'll get out. I just wanted to say we are at the end of our call. We're down to our last 5 minutes or so. And Josh, I'm sorry, we interrupted you. You were in the midst of your question.
Yeah, sorry about that. I guess there was just a miscommunication on my part. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Awesome. Yeah, my question is just related to what the chief was talking about, and I know some officers brought this up as well, but what training is provided for police in Shaker specifically, and what is the general training across the country? And then I also just had a follow-up question for the officers specifically. Do you think that your training adequately prepared you as a rising officer?
Speak first. I'll touch on your second question first, if you don't mind. I was very shocked coming straight out of the academy and becoming a Shaker Heights police officer, because the academy did a decent job at preparing you, kind of getting you a good basis on what you're going to experience. However, when I came into Shaker, I got 5 weeks of orientation training that was like any other. Great training officers, and then 6 months approximately with a training officer who prepared me even further. And excuse me, there's a couple great quotes. You can find a lot of great people have said them, but in high stress situations, oftentimes people resort back down to their training. And I couldn't be more grateful for having a police department like Shaker Heights, because we do training nonstop, and we have the freedom of putting in for even extra classes provided by all different types of associations throughout the state of Ohio. And we can go to different types of training that will continue to help us grow as police officers. So does that answer your question, Josh?
Yeah, that answers my question. Thank you. I just wanted to hear a police perspective on that, like for their experience specifically. And then I know that I can get some results just through Googling the specifics. So if anyone else has questions not related to my, my own question, it's, we can move on. Thank you.
Yeah, I had a question. Hi, my name's Brendan. I'm in 10th grade. So I know a couple of the officers, I think, have mentioned that you've been like trying as a department to like grow after, everything that's going on in the world or in the country with violence against the Black community. But what exactly have you got? Like, what exactly does that entail? What does growing entail? Like, is there any specific, things that you've done department wide to try and be more like equitable? Or like really just have there been any changes made throughout the summer with everything going on?
So I can handle that. And Brandon, that we've just, on other conversations, we've discussed this very matter. And that's a very broad question with probably an hour's worth of narrative that I could fill in. So since I became police chief in October of 2015, at the time I was acting chief, we have done a tremendous amount of training in regards to bias-free policing and cultural competencies, that type of thing. And we have been doing that for over, I want to say 15 years. So while many departments after the tragedy of George Floyd occurred began that training, we've been doing it for 15 years and we'll continue to do it. This year in COVID, we couldn't do it in person, so we did it virtually, but every year our officers go through, again, bias-free policing training and cultural competency training. That's just part of their overall training regimen, which is fairly in depth. This year, our supervisory staff, to start, because training costs money, they're attending a training through the groundwater training, which is about racial equity. It's excellent training. And kudos to Jerry Chaikin, our CAO, because she found it along with our HR director, Sandy Middleton. And when you sit through it, your eyes open and you're like, it's unbelievable, because it gives you unmistaken or unrefutable facts about gaps, opportunity gaps in regards to race. And it's just phenomenal training. Anyway, I'm talking about the training. I'm not really answering your question, Brendan, but I guess what I'm trying to say is that it's important to me, and it has been important to me ever since I took over. And it was important to me years ago to change the culture of our police department. I made a comment yesterday. My only hope is that after I leave, that cultural change accelerates faster and faster and faster, and it becomes mainstream. But we do a ton of training in regards to what I just talked about. And so much so that I can't talk about it all, but I can certainly provide it to you, on paper to show you exactly what we do.
Okay, Chief. Thank
Edie, if I may.
you for that. I do have more people want questions answered. We're about out of time. I'm asking Jerry if we can get just a few more minutes, because Jordan Ware has a question and Jamie Martin wanted to ask one. And then I am going to go out on a limb as a representative of S.A.M.S, because we still have so many relevant questions. I know this was supposed to be our last meeting, Chief, but do you think maybe we could put together one more so that we can, invite the youth back and get to the rest of these questions?
You're going in
Can
and
you hear
out,
me?
Dee. You're going in and out, Dee Dee, but I think your question is, can we have another meeting to answer the additional questions? Was that it?
Yes, to invite the youth back and to answer some more of their questions.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I love this,
Charles,
I
30
love
seconds
it.
worth.
Say that, Tim?
I was going to make the suggestion that any questions that were not answered tonight that are in the chat, if somehow those could be memorialized and sent to us, we would love to answer those questions and send back those responses. Can we make that
I'm pretty
happen?
sure I could.
And I understand that, but
We can make that
I
happen.
lost sound.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah, we can make that happen.
And one final thing, this only take 2 seconds. Can you pick one more winner? Because we have another ice cream place, another ice cream shop in the city. And if it's okay with the chief, on behalf of the police department, we'd like to offer another gift card for Baskin Robbins. And Kim, please contact me tomorrow so we can arrange for you to pick that up. So can you guys pick one more?
Hey, that's wonderful. Yes, I can easily pick another name. Happy to. I'll do that. And then I just want to say thank you so much for everyone who joined us tonight. You're doing important work. This is important work, and so grateful that you contributed your thoughts and comments and questions to our discussion. So let me pick this other name. Just give me a moment and I'll be back in the call.
While we're at a standstill, I just want to make sure, Mr. Hicks, Tim and I talked, and we're hoping for a date in May that we can get your folks over to us. Does that sound good? It sounds awesome. That's actually why we've been in the meeting. I do apologize for joining late, but quite a few of my scholars have been texting me as we were talking, and they would like for you guys to come back again to our scholars meeting. And they feel as though it was a more personal connection with you guys, Sergeant Grafton, Chief, and you and your other officers that attended. So I want to extend that invitation to you to let you know when that meeting is. And I told them that has told me you will make sure that we get to the Shaker Heights Police Department, even if the school district doesn't make sure it happens.
Absolutely. We'll give them a parade of police cars, and we'll pick them up and we'll take them over. And maybe the next meeting is at the police department with some pizza and whatever.
Sounds great. I actually asked them, how do you feel about riding in the police cars? A few of them was like, that'd be a little weird, but they all want to do it. I want to say hello to a couple of my guys that joined in late that just sent me a text like, Mr. Hicks, would you please send me the link? Aaron, are you there? I see you, Aaron.
Yes, I am here. Hi.
All right. Thank you.
So we do have the winner of our Baskin Robbins ice cream cart, and the winner is Marquise Foster.
All
Are
right.
you there, Marquise? Maybe he's left us, but I'll be sure that it gets to him.
Absolutely.
I have one question. If anyone's comfortable for, like, if someone wants to reach out for further questions, if the police officers could like put their email in the chat box, if it's okay, that'd be dope.
I appreciate your comment, Nikita, and if they're willing to do that, that is fine. But again, like I said, if you have the question, I'm sure many others have the question, and we'd really like to keep an open forum. But look, Sergeant Grafton has his in there. Yay. Miss Jerry, are you ready to close us out? We've extended our time.
Sure, but I just want to let everyone know the audio of this will be posted on the City of Shaker Heights website, shakeronline.com, on our DEI page for community conversations. So if you want to share that link with your friends so that they know our police department's really open to conversations with you, that would just be great.
And I would add one other thing, Dee Dee, before we get off is, I know we're in the middle of a pandemic and we've been apart for so long. I would make a plea to all the youth on this call right now to maybe do some brainstorming for the upcoming summer and warmer months, that maybe we can get together in a park or something or whatever, where it's social distance and we're outside and we can just get together and talk, right? Just get together and talk.
With you saying that, Chief, if I can jump in real quick, for the Scholars Program, and we did this for a couple years, and it was for the scholar programs from the 4th through to the high school. We used to meet at Horseshoe Lake and have a scholars picnic there. So maybe we can try work. I get with Mr. Reese and Mr. McIntyre. Maybe we can try to plan something there for the summer, because we would do it about midsummer, late summer. If you are open for that.
That'd be great.
Great.
Can I say something really quickly about that? So I think a lot of us, or at least I don't want to speak on behalf of everyone, but I've been talking to a couple of people who are also here. We were kind of more interested in hearing directly from the police officers, because I think, I don't know, it was only an hour and I appreciated this whole meeting to kind of learn more. But I think next time it would be a little more helpful to hear more directly from the officers as opposed to like other people, if that makes sense.
Okay, so what is it that you would like to hear from the officers, Brendan? Because that was the thing, especially for having the youth on, to get you to ask the questions and to direct them to where you wanted your answers to come from.
Yeah, I just think I know we only had an hour, so it was hard, but I think a lot of us still have, like there just wasn't enough time, which is fine. I mean, it was only an hour again. But if it was more just kind of, maybe if it was just with them in the student, like in the youth, it might just kind of flow a little nicer and make it more of like an open discussion as opposed to a direct question and answer. Because I know like when people were saying something, I would have questions going off of that. And then like by the time they finished talking, someone else would like ask a completely different question. And it was just the flow was a little rocky.
Yes, I do know what you're describing. And the question that you're asking is not an uncommon question. You know, oftentimes after these conversations, I'll just talk to people and get emails and just some follow-up. And that is one of the most popular requests that we have an opportunity to hear directly from the officers who are going to have these exchanges and these encounters with youth or just people. So that's not an uncommon request. It is hard to fit this type of conversation, and especially with this amount of people within an hour. It really is, but it's hard to fit a Zoom in for most of us. There's so many Zoom. So we're just happy to have this hour to come together. But I do recognize what you're requesting.
I also think that a good idea, just like the chief brought up, that perhaps they can get together in a park. I think that that would be the forum for that, just because Zoom is more difficult to try to do that because you can't control who's going to unmute and who's going to ask questions and whether or not you're quick enough basically to get your question out. So perhaps with the chief that and the youth who are on and the schools, even maybe they can at a lunchtime, maybe the police can come up there and talk to the kids outside or something like that can happen.
That sounds great. You know, it's COVID. You know, we're doing the best we can under these conditions. So let's look forward to those things like what she just mentioned and described. I think that's an awesome idea. Imagine, you know, hanging out with the police department during your lunch break. So yeah, those are all ideas and things that I think we should just continue to talk about, and be happy that we found a way to come together and find a platform even under the restraints of COVID.
And if I
I
can
do
say
want
one
to.
more thing, I'm sorry. I would like
No, you're
for,
fine.
can we just acknowledge Kim Harris for bringing this forum to fruition, because I know there was a lot of work in her in, and she appreciates everything that everybody has brought for this to be possible. I think that finding common ground was very, very successful, and I myself look forward to doing it again in the future.
Thank you, Mel. I really do appreciate that. Just so happy to be able to be a part of a community. You know, this is my Shaker family, and just really happy to have the opportunity to have these type of discussions. So I should be saying thank you to all of you.
And I would say from the police department, from all of us, Kim, we appreciate your courage. We really do, for getting this, being the motivator, being the accelerant, if you will, and your courageousness in moving this project forward. You really, I admire you for what you're doing, and I hope you continue on, and we will continue on in some way, shape, or form, because this is an important thing that we do.
Thank you. Yes, looking forward to keeping it going however we can. Well, it is almost 8:15. We've gone over 15 minutes. So happy about tonight's conversation. If you do have any additional questions, if SAMS can help at all with any type of follow-up, please reach out to us. It's just the email, I put it in the chat. And unless anyone has any more questions or comments, I think we are wrapped up for the evening.
I'm going to say thank you, Jerry, for the extra time. Thank you all for joining us. Have a great evening.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye. Have a good evening.
Thank you.